people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the mother relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this, a story I'm sure you're all aware of that broke late yesterday. Mike Kopinger tweeted, Gervonta Davis and Frank Martin have agreed to a deal for a PBC pay-per-view fight in late spring, early summer for Tank's WBA lightweight title, sources tell ESPN. Davis's legal trouble sidelined him the second half of last year, but now he's back versus a legitimate top 10 lightweight. Well, when you insist on putting every fight behind a paywall, the least you can do is fight a top 10 lightweight. That's not a favor to us. There are no surprises here, no surprises in Gervonta Davis's career. I figured his next opponent will boil down to either Rayo Valenzuela or Frank Martin, because they don't have very much left over there on the PBC side of things. So it's going to be one of those two guys, and as it turns out, it's going to be Frank Martin. And between the time that Gervonta Davis shared the ring with Ryan Garcia last year and where we are now, there have been other opportunities to do other fights, bigger ones, far bigger than this, for bigger money. And he chooses this guy. Remember that not that long ago, Turki Al-Sheikh himself expressed an interest in bankrolling a show between Gervonta and Devin Haney in Saudi. And he chooses this guy. Remember that Eddie Hearn offered Gervonta Davis a boatload of cash to fight Conor Benn. And he chooses this guy. For what was an estimated guarantee of $25 million. And he chooses this guy. So what you then have to ask yourself is, what's supposed to make Frank Martin a better option than Conor Benn, a better option than Devin Haney, a better option than Shakur Stevenson, who's right there at lightweight alongside Gervonta Davis? What the hell is supposed to make this fight better than those fights? I don't know. Frank Martin does not have the profile of a Shakur Stevenson. He's certainly not as accomplished a fighter. Shakur is a 3-division champion. Devin Haney is a 2-division champion. Conor Benn, whilst not being a champion, he has more of a profile in the United Kingdom than Frank Martin has anywhere in the world. Yeah. Anywhere on the planet. You often hear it said that Gervonta Davis, he's not fighting for legacy. He's not a legacy fighter. What he fights for is the bag. The money. I struggle with that notion because there's more money in a Conor Benn fight, more money in a Devin Haney fight, more money even in a Shakur Stevenson fight than a Frank Martin fight. There's more money in those fights than this one, so how can we say that Gervonta Davis is fighting for the money? Is it for the money, or is this the safest fight out there, one of the safer fights left for him? What's the focus? What's the crux of the effort? Is it getting at the best money, or is it fighting in the safest fight? And it looks like the latter, to me, more than the former, because you'd make more money fighting those guys than fighting this one. Frank Martin. How many times over the years did you hear Leonard Ellerbe question what Gervonta's contemporaries brought to the table, like Vasyl Lomachenko at 135 or Josh Taylor at 140, questioning what did those fighters bring to the table? What does Frank bring to the table? What? We've all heard the sound bites, seen the interviews. We've all heard Leonard Ellerbe talk down all these other guys, capable fighters, at or around these weights. We've all seen him do it. Asking what do these guys bring to the table, but what does a Frank Martin bring to the table? Doesn't bring a belt, doesn't bring a profile, whole lot of marquee value. He doesn't bring either of those things. Those other guys have more of that than he does. The only virtue I see is that this fight allows Gervonta to stay on his own side of things. That's it. The PBC side, in tandem with Frank not looking too good in his last fight opposite the ring, Artem Haratunian. There were a lot of people that thought he lost that fight or that he should have. In September of last year, Frank Martin withdrew from a WBC-ordered fight between him and Shakur Stevenson that was supposed to be for the newly vacated WBC title. He pulled out of that fight. Supposed to be for 7 figures, a career-high purse for him because he don't make that kind of money. Many speculated that he pulled out of that fight so that he could fight in this one, this fight with Gervonta Davis. But consider when this fight is happening. Late spring to early summer. What, May? June? The Shakur Stevenson fight was supposed to happen late last year. Means there would have been plenty of time to go in there, fight Shakur, then still fight Gervonta Davis in spring or summer of this year. There was plenty of time to do both, so why didn't he?
Because he would have got beat.
Because he would have lost. I've been saying it on repeat. I've been saying it throughout. That wasn't an either-or situation. If you believe in your skills and you believe in your boxing and you like your chances, you fight Shakur, you beat Shakur, you take that WBC title, and then you can bring it to a Gervonta Davis fight, because there was plenty of time to do both if you're fighting Gervonta all the way out there in either late spring or early summer. There was time to do both. Why didn't you?
He didn't like his chances.
He figures he won't make it to the Gervonta Davis fight if he does the dance with Shakur first, so he skipped out on Shakur. He ducked Shakur.
Is that fair to say that he ducked Shakur to go fight a strong puncher in Gervonta Davis?
Yeah, it's fair to say that, because he's approaching this from a position of weakness. If you believed in your boxing and you liked your chances, imagine what beating Shakur would have done for your profile. Imagine what that would have done for your profile and your negotiating power, beating a top name and becoming a champion in the process. What would that have done for his profile?
If he would have beat Shakur.
And what would that have done for the size of this fight, the Gervonta Davis fight? That would have been for 2 belts instead of just one, just Gervonta's.
Frank would be coming off a big win.
Enhancing his profile and the profile of this fight. That's if he would have fought Shakur and beat Shakur. Like I said, he wasn't going to beat Shakur, and he couldn't have thought that he was going to beat Shakur, because if he did, then he would have fought him.
Simple.
There was time to do both. It's not an either-or situation. If you're not fighting Gervonta until way out there in late spring or early summer, then you had plenty of time last year to settle up with Shakur.
Don't you think that's a rough sequence of fights from Shakur Stevenson to Gervonta Davis?
Isn't Francis Ngannou going from Tyson Fury to Anthony Joshua? And he's a fucking novice.
Isn't Joseph Parker going from Deontay Wilder to Zhilei Zhang?
Spare me the bit about it being a tough sequence of fights. Just spare me. This guy's a 30-year-old prospect with no signature fights.
Spare me.
He skipped out on Shakur because he didn't like his chances. He skipped out on Shakur because he figures if I fight this guy, I'm gonna lose, and that'll derail my career. That's what it was, and that's what it is. Go in there with this guy. Go in there with Frank Martin. And what is that going to do at the box office? Not more than Gervonta would have did with Shakur, and certainly not more than he would have did with Devin Haney.
Conor Benn brings another arm of revenue from the UK, transatlantic money.
This is not a bigger fight than any of those other fights, and the hope is that because the fight is happening on a very big platform like Amazon Prime, if they can get even 1% of Amazon's subscribers
To buy this fight.
even just 1%, they could do massive numbers, because Amazon Prime hosts about 200 million subscribers.
But how did that rationale work on Fox? You remember Fox, a massive terrestrial network here in America. Not cable, not premium cable, terrestrial television.
When the PBC was in bed with Fox and they were doing pay-per-views there, doing shows there, did they get 1% of all of Fox's viewers?
No.
Fox is a massive platform like Amazon Prime is a massive platform, but just because it's a massive platform doesn't mean everybody's gonna watch.
Well, they only want 1%.
Yeah, and they didn't get that on Fox, so why am I supposed to believe they're gonna get that on Amazon?
They're not.
Just call it what it is. You chose this guy because it's easier to be the A side against him as opposed to them.
He's cheaper than AR.
Safer than AR. He's a safer choice than a Stevenson, than a Haney, than a Ben. He's a safer choice, and he's right there.
You don't even have to go anywhere. It's all about safety for Gervonta, not money.
It's about safety. Making the safest choice. Not the biggest of the best. Consider that from the time that Devin beat Regis Prograis till now, Gervonta Davis had an opportunity right there, a window to do a fight with that guy. You don't want to go to Saudi? Then don't go to Saudi. Do it on your own terms, on your own side of the street. Devin was a free agent. Matchroom wouldn't have stood in the way of that fight.
The fight that he's about to have is a Golden Boy promotion show. They're the ones at the helm of promotion, not Matchroom.
They wouldn't have stood in the way. They would have let him go over there. He could go to Amazon, do that fight with Gervonta, and that would have been big for the PBC. That would have been big for them. To do a fight like that?
They could have made a splash with that one. That would have left people so inclined to go to Amazon and watch their content there.
Getting a first look at what is supposed to be the Amazon Prime schedule for the PBC, as boxing scribe Dan Raphael tweets, as it stands in terms of PBC Amazon Prime, we're looking at March 30th, a pay-per-view between Zoo and Thurman, May 4th, a pay-per-view between Canelo and an opponent yet to be announced.
That's if Canelo even stays over there. We don't know if he is.
What if he doesn't? And what happened to April? They're not doing any shows in April?
It's the rumor I heard.
Rumor that Dan Raphael's tweet is more or less corroborating. You'll notice there's no show in April. There's nothing about the PBC doing a show in April. Just a potential Canelo Alvarez fight in early May.
If he stays.
Potential David Benavidez versus Alexander Vojtic pay-per-view in June, and Tank versus Frank Martin in late summer.
I thought it was late spring.
Early summer. Who really fucking knows? Maybe it's late spring and early summer if Canelo Alvarez bails, if Canelo Alvarez leaves. They'll accelerate those plans to do that Tank versus Frank Martin fight. I don't know. I'm just bouncing ideas around, but Dan continued, I figure each pay-per-view is at least $65. Where are the non-pay-per-view fights?
Same place as the Waddle and Reed money.
And the Tank versus Isaac Cruz pay-per-view numbers, same place as that. You'll notice that every single one of these fights is being billed as a pay-per-view, a box office fight. Now, why should you pay pay-per-view prices for Benavidez versus Vojtic when you're getting the undisputed title fight at that same weight as part of your ESPN subscription? No additional charge. No pay-per-view. Why should you pay pay-per-view?
Why?
That doesn't make sense. And you say that the PBC put on the best fights? No, they're doing as best as they can with what little they have. And it doesn't make sense to the consumer. Why would it? You're getting undisputed at that same weight between two unbeaten champions.
So why is Benavidez versus Vojtic so much more expensive than that fight?
How do you make that make sense? And it's not because the PBC is putting on the best fight at light heavyweight. The best fight at light heavyweight is between Artur and Dimitri, not David and Alex. Not putting on the best fight. They're just trying to do their best as they can under these circumstances with what limited resources they have.
Another PBC fighter is said to have jumped ship.
According to Rick Glacier, the Dominican Republic's own Elvis Rodriguez is set to migrate from PBC over to Matchroom. Initially, he migrated from Top Rank over to PBC. Now he's set to leave PBC and go to Matchroom.
And that can't be because it's the land of milk and honey over there. It can't be because it's all sunshine and rainbows at the PBC.
Seen an effort to downplay how many fighters are leaving. I told you all along, this is what would happen. When there's a scarcity of fight dates, these fighters have got bills to pay and families to feed, just like the rest of us. And if Al cannot accommodate him, if he does not have the resources and the fight dates for these fighters, they're gonna start to float away.
I said that shit last year. I said it on repeat.
So when it starts to happen, you can see these bozos try to downplay it. That these fighters that you used to see on PBC shows, they're leaving. WBC featherweight champion Ray Vargas is boxing in Saudi. Subriel Matias just inked a multi-fight deal with Matchroom.
Julian Williams, Jarrett Hurd, Mark Maxayo, Luis Ortiz. Their last fights were on non-televised shows. Small shows.
Angelo Leo, he used to be with Mayweather Promotions. His last couple of fights have been on Pro Box.
He's not with Mayweather anymore?
Well, if he were, I would think that he'd be boxing on Amazon Prime like Rolly.
Yeah.
A little over a week ago, Stefan Espinoza said that the PBC is shopping around for a second broadcast partner, a more traditional broadcast partner, and it can't be because Amazon is giving them what they need.
Everything for everyone.
And if they're lucky enough to find somebody, what's the state of the stable going to be like by that time? By that time, a good number of those fighters may have already left. Fighters are leaving them. And it's because they don't have as many resources. They don't have the fight dates needed to accommodate them. You want I should say it nicer?
Is there a nice way for me to say that?
What are you getting so bent out of shape for? I've been telling you for weeks. I've been telling you for months. I've even been telling you for years. This is gonna happen. Now it's here.
What do you want me to do?
Now, as it pertains to fights set to go down in the near future, Arsene Goulemarian is set to defend his WBA Cruiserweight title versus Zurdo Ramirez on March 30th, the same day as Zoo versus Thurman, in what is a non-pay-per-view fight available to you as part of your existing DAZN subscription, which in all likelihood is cheaper than buying that pay-per-view. Will be a clash of the Titans on Saturday, March 30th, as WBA Cruiserweight champion Arsene Ferros Goulemarian of Yerevan, Armenia, makes his U.S. fighting debut to defend his championship hardware against Hungary former world champion Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez. Ramirez will be hoping to break records yet again to become the first Mexican to become a cruiserweight champion. The momentous 12-round fight is presented in association with Y12 Boxing and will take place at the YouTube Theater at Hollywood Park in Inglewood and broadcast live on DAZN.
I don't think most people realize that Zurdo Ramirez was the first Mexican-born fighter to become a super middleweight champion, and he aspires to become the first Mexican-born Cruiserweight champion.
He's got to go through Arsene Goulemarian to do it. I am excited to fight for the first time in the United States, and of all places, Los Angeles, said Arsene Goulemarian. There are no excuses now. I know Zerto wants to be a world champion, but he's gonna have to go through me first. I will successfully defend my world championship belt this March 30th.
And he's a big boy.
I'm back, and I'm ready to become the first Mexican cruiserweight champion. When I made the move to this division, I had my eyes set on Arsene, and I can't wait to showcase my skills in the ring, said Zerto Ramirez. I feel extremely comfortable at this weight class, and I will look to become the undisputed champion. I want to thank the Zone, Golden Boy, and the WBA.
Can he do it?
Before it even becomes a question of skill and ability, there are politics to be addressed, political boundary lines that determine what fights happen and what fights don't. The WBO title is over there at Boxer.
Chris Billum Smith's got it.
Think Zerto Ramirez will have access to that fighter? There has never been a Mexican-born champion in both the super middleweight and cruiserweight divisions, but Zerto has always been special, and I fully expect him to walk away with the WBA title on March 30th, said chairman and CEO of Golden Boy, Oscar De La Hoya. On the heels of being the first Mexican super middleweight, Zerto can now do the same in the cruiserweight division. With all of his motivation, I would expect a knockout, and a spectacular one.
A knockout?
Zerto really has yet to make his bones as a cruiserweight. He hasn't faced a bona fide cruiserweight yet. His last fight was against a light heavyweight moving up in weight like himself in Joe Smith Jr.
He's not a cruiserweight.
I mean, he's a big boy and he can punch, but
He's not a cruiserweight.
Arsene Goulemarian is, and this is a guy who likes to sit in the pocket, likes to trade, likes to punch, throw combinations. This is not the kind of guy I think Zerto can beat through strength of arms. He has to fine-tune his approach.
Move and punch.
Silver lining for Zerto is that in spite of Arsene being a bona fide cruiserweight, he hasn't fought in well over a year. He hasn't fought. He will have ring rust to shake off the night of the fight.
He ain't fought since November of 2022. He sat out all of last year.
Would be a credible scalp. A quality scalp for Zerto Ramirez, who's a newbie to this weight, though, not without some angling. He does have that working for him that Arsene hasn't fought in a while, though. Let's not kid ourselves. Just because Zerto is the house fighter, that doesn't mean he can't be gotten to. I remember when Gabriela Fundora went over there for Arely Musinho. Arely was the house fighter, and she got a fucking ass kicked.
It's before Golden Boy signed Gabriela.
Arely Musinho was the house fighter and the reigning champion, and she got her fucking ass kicked. And what about Alexis Rocha? Look at what happened to him.
Santi Liang fucked him up.
Beat the fucking shit out of that guy. And Alexis Rocha was the house fighter. So it's not like the house fighter can't be gotten to.
He can.
It's what lends itself to this fight's intrigue. That Zerto Ramirez might be the house fighter, and he is experienced, but he's facing a bona fide cruiserweight, a big one. Bigger guy than he's used to fighting.
Big enough he can take it out of the judge's hands?
We'll see. On the same night as Zoo versus Thurman, for no additional charge, as part of your existing DAZN subscription, which I think will make the choice very easy for a lot of people.
Want to see a boxing match, but don't want to have to pay an arm and a leg to do it.
Here you go.